All right, let's dive into the story of a man who is just a huge paradox. He was clumsy, he was uneducated, and really, by any external measure, he was completely unremarkable. And yet, he became one of the great mystics of the Catholic Church.
Right? How does that even happen? Well, that's exactly what we're going to get into. This explainer is all about how a man named Giancarlo Marchionne, later known as Charles of Sezze, turned a life of simple, humble service into a legacy of spiritual wisdom so profound that he became one of the Church's most revered figures.
You know, Charles's journey doesn't start in some grand cathedral or a fancy library. Nope. It starts on a simple farm in 17th century Italy. His beginnings were about as ordinary as you can get.
So he was born back in 1613 to a very devout farming family, and they had big hopes for him. They really wanted him to become a priest, but honestly, Charles was much more at home out in the fields. His life took this huge turn in 1635 when a really bad illness almost killed him. And it was right then that he made a promise to God, a promise that would set him on a totally different path.
You see, despite his parents' dreams and his own deep faith, Charles just really struggled in school. He wasn't cut out for the intense scholarly work you need for ordination, so that door, it was firmly shut.
So, with the priesthood off the table, what's a guy to do? Well, instead of chasing after some kind of status or recognition, Charles leaned into a life of simple, humble service as a Franciscan lay brother. And this, right here, is where he found his true calling.
He took on all the jobs nobody else really wanted, answering the door, digging in the garden, even going out and begging for alms from the townspeople. He found his purpose, not by preaching from a pulpit, but in all these small, everyday acts of service, completely hidden from the spotlight.
And this quote, wow, it just gets to the very heart of his spirituality. His own words show this really practical approach that's all about the core message of love, not extreme physical punishments just for the sake of it. For him, it was about love and action.
Okay, so this is where the story gets really, really interesting. You've got this stark contrast between what his life looked like on the outside and the incredibly profound world that was going on inside him.
I mean, on the outside, the guy was apparently a bit of a disaster waiting to happen. He actually started a major fire in the friary kitchen once. But internally, a completely different story. He was diving into the deepest forms of prayer and had this incredible spiritual insight.
And get this, under orders from his confessor, this friar who could barely read and write wrote several major spiritual books. His autobiography, The Grandeurs of the Mercies of God, is considered so amazing that it's often compared to the writings of giants like Saint Teresa of Avila. That's just incredible. But this intense inner life wasn't just something he wrote about. It was all building towards something, a single, defining, mystical event that would literally mark him for the rest of his life.
So, let's set the scene. The year is 1648. Charles is in his mid-30s and he's attending Mass in a small church in the heart of Rome. The stage is set for something truly extraordinary to happen.
And this is the actual church, San Giuseppe a Capo le Case. It was right here, during the most sacred moment of the Mass, that the climax of his spiritual journey took place. He experienced what's known as the wound of love. It's this very rare mystical grace, a type of stigmata. He reported that a dart of light literally shot out from the consecrated Eucharist and visibly pierced his side, leaving an open physical wound over his heart that would stay with him for the rest of his life.
Now, as you can imagine, an event like that is pretty hard to keep a secret. The depth of his inner life, now marked by this incredible physical sign, didn't stay hidden behind the friary walls for long.
His reputation for spiritual wisdom just exploded, so much so that 3 different popes, Innocent X, Alexander VII, and Clement IX, all sought out his advice. I mean, just think about that. The leader of the entire Catholic world asking for guidance from a humble, uneducated cook and gardener.
So how does this life of hidden greatness and quiet counsel eventually lead to official recognition from the Church? Well, let's take a look at what happened after he died and his final path to becoming a saint.
Well, after he passed away, the physical evidence of that mystical wound was examined, and what they found was astounding. A hard, nail-shaped growth of flesh right there under his left breast. This incredible physical sign was accepted as one of the miracles needed for the next big step, beatification.
He died in 1670, but you know, the path to sainthood is a long one.
His holiness was first recognized when he was beatified in 1882, but it wasn't until 1959, nearly 300 years after his death, that Pope John XXIII officially declared him a saint, making it official.
So what's the big takeaway for us today? Well, one writer really just nails it. They said, his life of humility is a powerful challenge, a rebuke to our modern obsession with ambition, pride, and self-promotion.
And really, the life of St. Charles of Sezze forces us to ask that very tough question. In a culture that is absolutely obsessed with outward success, with being seen, with achievements, what is the power we might be overlooking in a quiet, humble, and hidden life?